and welcome. I'm Laura Briggs with the Vegan Fitness Runner podcast, where I'll be talking all things running, health and fitness, and what it means to be an active vegan. So I'm here with Vic Owens, aka the Happy Runner, who I know personally, as well as through all of her running exploits, which are pretty fantastic. Hello, Vic. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay, thank you. Yeah.
And so you are probably feeling maybe a little bit tired talking to me today because you've just done a really massive challenge, which I'm totally in awe of. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was?
So I took on last weekend the Tunnel Ultra, which is a race put on by Mark Cobain in the longest foot tunnel in the UK, and it's a mile long in Bath. And yeah, so you run through it and back, and if you want a medal, you have to run 200 miles. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the tunnel.
So you have to run 200 miles for a medal. What happens, say, if you run just less than 200, so 199? No medal?
No medal. So yeah, I ran 108 miles. So I did not get a medal. And yet I think there was 5 finishers out of 37 starters this year, which is actually a really good finish rate for the tunnel. So yeah, there was a lot of people that went home without medals, but with lots of stories and experiences to remember for life.
So just let me get this straight in my head, Vic. You're running a mile to the end of a dark tunnel, I'm guessing no lights, and then you basically have to turn around and run to the other end, and you just keep going until you get too tired, or until your mind starts to play tricks on you. What makes you, well, A, what makes you want to carry on in the first place, and then B, what makes you want to stop?
Yeah, so I think the law of taking on the tunnel is knowing that you probably won't actually be able to achieve it, which is really an insane thing to say. But there is something really sort of encapturing with the idea of something that's almost the impossible. I think that's just human nature, isn't it? It's curiosity. You want to see how far you can go when something is almost impossible. So yeah, and yeah, it's really hard to explain what it's like in the tunnel. So it is a public tunnel, and it's very well known for cyclists whizzing through as well. And it's got very low lighting, I would describe it as, during the day. So during the day when the public are sort of flowing through it, I didn't see any of the public not carrying a torch. So everyone that goes through it knows, you want to bring a torch. You don't just sort of amble through it without one, even though there is some very low lighting. There's a lot of steps you take which there is no lighting at all. And then at 11 p.m, the lights go off, because between 11 and 6 a.m, the tunnel is normally locked up. So it stayed open for the event, but normally it's closed. So at that point, there is no lighting, and it becomes like an endless hole of darkness.
It sounds to me horrific. I mean, I'm pretty claustrophobic anyway, and I just can't. I mean, I know the appeal of a challenge or something that you think maybe you might not be able to complete, but it just does not appeal to me in any way, shape or form. And I read reports, Vic, about people hallucinating because it's just so mind-bending. Did that happen to you at any point?
Yeah, so this is actually the 3rd time that I've taken on the tunnel. The first and the second time I was very bad with hallucinations. This time I didn't experience any hallucinations, and I have worked and trained very hard to overcome hallucinations, which seems to be working for me at the moment. So I didn't experience any when tackling the tunnel this time. However, perhaps if I'd gone a little longer, I might not have been able to push those away so much.
That's crazy. I don't even know how you go about training to not hallucinate. But for those who maybe don't know so much about your background. I mean, I happen to know that some of the challenges you've taken on previously are absolutely epic. I mean, you've run, King Offa's Dyke, and you've run Lon Las, and you've done, so many barefoot miles as well, which people may or may not be aware of. So in all of your running, you are taking on challenges that are, maybe a little bit above and beyond what normal challenges are perceived to be. Do you think that has all helped you get to this point and maybe fight those hallucinations?
100%. And I do very specific training to try to conquer things that I know aren't my strengths. So when something isn't my strength, I do it over and over and over again, till I get that little bit better. And if there's something that I don't like, I will do it over and over and over again. So perhaps this is why I keep returning to the tunnel.
I mean, 3 times does seem excessive for somebody who doesn't even want to step foot into a tunnel once. Yeah, I'm going to agree. I mean, I remember, Vic, you running around your back garden. Something, forgive me, I can't remember the exact mileage, but I'm going to say something like 60, 70 miles around your back garden.
Mm-hmm.
Is that somewhere along those lines?
It is, yes. And that was in my back garden. That was during lockdown. So there was a challenge put out, a virtual challenge that we all had to sort of measure our garden properly, because we knew Strava wasn't going to pick it up. We had to measure it properly, and then we had to count every time we went round it, which was a big challenge. And yeah, I did. I think it was definitely 60, maybe more than 60. Everyone knows I'm not the best with memory or stats. But yeah, around my garden, just endlessly, absolutely insane. But yeah, I did that. And then I've also actually done an ultra. I think it was 32 miles on my driveway, which was even more insane than going around the garden. So yeah.
I mean, you said it. You said insane. No one else had to. Also, I mean, the other thing about you, let's not forget, you do most of these miles wearing absolutely no shoes, no footwear, right? You're the barefoot runner.
Yeah.
It's what you do. Tell us about that and what the rationale behind barefoot running is.
Okay, so I started running initially in 2016, and I actually took off my shoes and started barefoot running, and this is without any shoes at all, in 2018, when I was properly into the ultra scene. I was experiencing I couldn't find shoes that would go the distance without so much foot pain or like ankle issues or weaknesses or just all those common things you get as a runner. And when you push a little bit further than your body really wants to. And I remember at the end of a race, it was Chester 100. I came in as second female, took off my shoes, and I put them in the bin. So I went home without any shoes. And someone had recommended barefoot shoes to me, and I had a pair on order, and I was waiting for them. And it struck me that I had no shoes to run in. So of course I went out running in no shoes, and it all kind of started from there. I started doing lots of research, and it just really worked for me. I realized that if my feet did the work, my feet were going to get really strong. And all those little iggles and niggles that I used to get running distance in shoes just became a thing of the past. So yeah, I do a lot of my training with no shoes on at all. And I've started to do a lot more racing miles barefoot now as well. And it just really works for me.
And you must have found, Vic, as well, that by running without shoes, unshod, your legs and certainly your ankles and your calf muscles must be so much stronger for it, because obviously your foot's having to do more work, isn't it, as a result of not wearing a shoe?
Yeah, 100%. So I remember the first time I went out and did distance barefoot, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I noticed immediately that my feet were rock solid. And I remember waking my husband up and being like, Rob, I think I've broken my feet. And Rob is probably the most inactive person going. And he was just like, don't be silly, you can't break your feet. And I was like, no, I think I've broken them. I think I've broken my feet. And he was like, what's wrong with them? And he asked me to explain it. And I realized that all that was wrong with them, I had like foot DOMs, like when you work hard on your legs and you get legs DOMs, or you lift heavy weights and you get arms DOMs. My feet had worked really hard and now I had foot DOMs, and it struck me that my feet had probably never worked like this before. And that really just hit something in my brain that made me think, well, shouldn't my feet be working as hard as my legs? Shouldn't they be doing the work? And like from that moment, I was just like, embrace the foot DOMs. Like, and obviously that eases as your feet get stronger. I don't get that anymore. But it's just like that mental switch of realizing that my feet, all the muscles, everything in my feet are working just like they're meant to.
Absolutely. So just for anybody that might not know what DOMS is, that's delayed onset muscle soreness, isn't it? So often if you do some exercise, you'll feel fine the next day, but the day after, that's when it really kicks in. Do you know, I remember running, because, another string to your bow is that you ran the Monarch's Way, didn't you? And you're the fastest person to ever have done so. And I remember joining you for a few miles on that, and you inspired me to try barefoot shoes. And I always remember the first time I put a pair on, and I think I ran about 4 miles, the first time I ever put them on my feet. And I've got to tell you, the next couple of days, my feet were in agony because I hadn't taken into consideration how little work my feet did ordinarily on a day-to-day basis in the shoes, the conventional shoes I wore. So it really opened my eyes to, how little we are working our foot muscles when we're not, walking around barefoot. So there's a lot to be said for, building up our muscles and building up our strength by just taking our shoes off sometimes, isn't there?
100%. And it has completely changed like the way I run and just everything. I just feel really fortunate that I had the opportunity to experience that and move forward with it, because I wouldn't like to think like where my feet would be if I'd kept them in the conventional shoes that I was wearing. I really think that I would have done myself a big injury.
Which brings me to the question, I suppose then, Vic, would you ever see yourself going back to a more conventional running shoe? Or for you now, is that just not something that's ever going to happen?
Oh, it's just, no. So it just is never going to happen. It's almost like saying, do I see myself becoming an inactive person? No, it's just not possible.
It's not you.
Yeah, every shoe that I own, no matter what it is a barefoot shoe now. Yeah, it's a way of life for me. The very rare time that I put on Rob's shoes for a laugh to stumble across the kitchen, I almost break my ankle. I'm just like, how do you walk in these? They're just crazy. It's like putting on the highest pair of high heels for me.
So high heels are a definite no-no, is my guess.
Yeah, I'm that gal at a wedding that hasn't got shoes on.
Bless you. Well, not many people do after the first couple of drinks, let's be honest. So I'm sure you blend in fine. Vic, the other thing about, you do the barefoot running, so you have a real natural style of running. You also are a vegan, so you have a very, what I would call more of a natural diet, in that you eat probably a little bit less processed food than most people, although I know you like your pizzas. Does having a vegan diet kind of feed into your way of running and how strong you are and how physically active you are? Does that help you?
Yeah. So I actually, funny story, went plant-based exactly the same time that I went barefoot. And that was under the influence of a barefoot runner I had met who was vegan and challenged me to do 2 weeks without dairy. Which I thought was absolutely bonkers. I mean, who can live without dairy? That's just crazy. But I did 2 weeks, and it was absolute hell for me. I had migraines. I was physically sick a lot. My body just really did not react well because I was so hooked on dairy and I hadn't realized it. But I came out at the end of that 2 weeks, and I thought I would be like running straight to the co-op to get my dairy fix, and I never went back. Everything seemed to change, like when I was running and taking in plant-based foods, I wasn't hitting the lows that I'd been experiencing on long runs. I just felt generally healthier. My body seemed to work better. But at that point, I hadn't gone vegan. I was plant-based, so there's a massive difference there, obviously. And it wasn't until my son, who was I think he was 6 at the time, I was making my children separate meals and I was eating my plant-based diet, and he just said to me, "Mummy, why aren't you eating chicken nuggets anymore?" So I said, "Because I want to be healthier and I want to just be a better runner." And he's like, "Is that why people don't eat animals?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "Well, how come there's really unhealthy vegan people then?" And I was like, "That's a really good question." And so we started doing a bit of research, and once I'd educated myself, I could not, my conscience could not let me be anything other than 100% vegan in my entire lifestyle. And at that point, my 6-year-old son, who watched all the documentaries with me and did some learning because I homeschool my children, he also became vegan, and he is just amazing. He is the reason that I went vegan, because of those questions he asked. And yeah, it is 100% our lifestyle now. We grow a lot of our own food and we try to be as unprocessed as possible. But yeah, it has completely changed my way of living, not just in the physical side, but also the mental side of things.
That's really interesting. It's lovely that your son was your inspiration for that. I know that he's started doing quite a lot of running as well. He obviously looks up to you, Vic. But I think, actually, when you scratch under the surface, a lot of people maybe start on the plant-based journey like you did. In fact, like I did as well, to be honest, with a kind of a health bent to it all, just thinking, this is going to make me healthier, this is going to make me a stronger runner. But then when you actually delve deeper and you look into the ethics and, the environmental credentials and all the rest of it of a vegan lifestyle, it then becomes very difficult to go back to eating animal products, because certainly for me, it just didn't sit right at all. I now, knowing what I know now and having done the research I did, much like yourself, I'm sure, I couldn't, in all good consciousness, go back to that lifestyle. And that's something I hear from quite a lot of vegans, is that they may have started on one journey and actually they found out so much more about what it means to be vegan by going through that process.
And we're very much a nation that is led in what we do by industry. And it's just, when I was younger, it was natural for me to eat meat. My parents gave it to me, and it was natural for me to put on high cushioned, comfortable shoes. That was just how I was brought up. And I think it's very commonplace, isn't it? We live an adult life in how we've been brought up. And it's only when we start looking into things for ourselves personally and educating ourselves, we see things that the industry does not promote, does not have open to us, because they're making money. So why would they say to us there's an alternative? So we're a nation that is led by that, that's just how the world works, isn't it? The world works off money making industries. But yeah, when I took the time to educate myself, I was quite surprised by what I learned, and that definitely led me to action.
And I think we're lucky, certainly having children as well and being learning with them now. I think we're more open to looking at alternatives. We're in quite a privileged position that, we maybe can afford to look at alternatives. And you're right. I mean, we're kind of brainwashed, aren't we? A lot of us into, you eat meat because that's what you do. You wear trainers because that's what we do. There's nobody ever questions these things. And it just takes one person to kind of buck the trend to make somebody else maybe think, oh, let me just research that and find out why we actually do that in the first place. And you're right. It's so, we're so led by by big bucks and big money industry that we kind of lose our way a little bit. And it takes quite a bold step, I think, to step out of that comfort zone. And you are one person I really consider to have done that, really strongly and proudly. And you kind of are a bit of a trailblazer in one respect. You did the barefoot thing. You didn't just kind of dip your foot in the water, so to speak. You really did it properly and wholeheartedly. And you've obviously done the same thing with your diet and your whole lifestyle and the way you try and live very holistically. And I think that's really commendable. And you've, in that respect, become, like I say, a trailblazer for other people to try and find new ways of living their lives as well. And that's amazing. That's a really commendable thing to do. Have you thought that maybe was ever something you set out to do, or has that just come by accident?
Yeah, that's definitely come by accident. And I'm so often surprised when people approach me and they say to me, I've tried this because of you, or I've done that because of you. And it's a really the first time someone said it to me, I was petrified. Like, a lady came up to me and she said, I started barefoot running because of you. It changed my life. And just those words, because of you, made me realize just what an impact you can make on someone and just what a responsibility you've got when you're setting an example. And I remember just how like petrified I felt. And it took a while for that to just calm and just realize that's okay. Like, I'm putting my truth out there, and that's inspiring other people to find out if it's their truth, and that is okay. But it was never something that I intended to do. I've always just said, this is sort of my story, this is what I'm doing, and people have really reacted to that. And it is kind of amazingly scary, but it is really cool as well to see other people gaining like experience from something that they would never have tried if perhaps they hadn't seen something that I had done. And that's really amazing.
Do you feel quite a burden of responsibility? Do you feel quite a lot of pressure because of that now? Is that something that you're experiencing, which you maybe never did before?
Yes. And it's something I try not to overly think about, because I think it's something, when I overly think about it, it can almost make a person not act how they want to. If I constantly thinking about, if I do this, what if this happens, it can take away your natural actions, your natural want to move in the natural way for you. So I try not to overthink it, but I'm always conscious of the fact that I am setting a good example and what I'm doing is the right thing. I'm always very conscious of that. But yeah, it can be quite sobering. So yeah, I always try to set a good example, but always making sure as well that I'm still doing what's right for me. I think that's really important.
And I always remember saying to you, Vic, something about, I was asking you about some shoes for a particular race, and you kind of, it was asking about Dragon's Back race actually. And I asked you, I obviously need something with a bit more tread. How am I going to do it in barefoot shoes? And you said, well, why on earth wouldn't you do it in barefoot shoes? That's what I do. But you've always been really careful, I suppose, to make sure that that's your decision, that's your choice. But actually, everybody is different. And, you've always said, if it works for you, that's brilliant. But it doesn't work for everybody, or maybe not everybody wants to go down that route. And that's one thing I think I've actually learned from you, is that it's okay to actually just make your own mind up and not be swayed by the general consensus. If one thing works for me, that's fine. It might not work for anybody else, but it's still okay if it works for me. And that's really something I've taken away from your philosophy. Is that something that you ever think about? Or again, is that just something that's just happened with the way you are?
Yeah, I think it's really important to not, in a sense, do something because someone else is doing it. I mean, it is good to be inspired by people, and it is good to try new things because you've seen other people do it. Because isn't that how we gain experience? Isn't that how we try new things? We are often led by example. But I think it's really important to never feel pressured to do something because someone else is doing it. It's important to make those decisions yourself. And if you're unsure about something, research it, look into it, try it out for you. Just because so and so is on the TV doing this and it's working for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But you need to try it and find out if it does, perhaps. But I think it is really important that, people who have influence over other people make sure that they let other people know that this might not work for you. This is what I'm doing, but do not feel pressured to make it work for you. And also, it's okay to mix things up if that's what some people want to do. Everyone is responsible for their own body. You're the only person that can live inside your body. I'm the only person that is going to live inside my body. And we have to make those choices for ourselves at the end of the day. And we should be supported in them, not pressured into them.
Absolutely. Well said. Vic, if somebody came to you and said, I'm really inspired by your barefoot running, I want to give it a go, what would your first piece of advice be to them?
I always say, when it comes to taking your shoes off, you need to leave your shoes and your ego out the door. When you step out barefoot for the first time, or even for the 10th or the 11th or the 100th time, it's a completely different journey. It is like learning to run again. It is 100% a new journey for someone. And they need to leave expectations of the world and their ego and everything they've learned before at the door, and just embrace what happens next. Because it is completely different, and it is completely personal and different to each person. I would give that one piece of advice: to leave your ego with your shoes and just experience it in the moment without any pre-ideas or anything, and just listen to your body and experience it and enjoy it.
And see where it takes you. So there's no kind of distance that you'd recommend. You just say, go with the flow, see what happens, and enjoy it as best you can.
Yeah, 100%. It's personal to each person. And if I was to tell you what I did the first time I went out for a barefoot run, that doesn't mean that's what you need to do for the first time for a barefoot run, because we're all different. And we're all going to take things on differently, and we need to do it in our own way for it to work for our body. It's as simple as that.
Fantastic advice. So listen, you've just finished running 100 miles up and down a tunnel, to all intent and purposes, in the dark. And I've been reading on your social media that you have kind of 4 big challenges that you planned for this year. Can you tell us about what your next one is?
Yeah, so I have just, like you said, I run underground. So now I'm going to completely flip that point, and I'm going to run very much above ground on a bridge. And it's exactly the same concept as the tunnel, like no support, no aids or anything. Again, if you want a medal, 200 miles, as simple as that. It's 55-hour time frame. But yeah, on a bridge above water, which will be really interesting because I'm massively scared of heights. So this will be a big challenge for me.
Now that is interesting. Yeah. So obviously with the tunnel, I'm guessing you're not hugely claustrophobic because you decided to take that challenge on. You did pretty well. But being scared of heights, that's obviously then going to add an element of fear to your run, isn't it? Which may be quite challenging to overcome. We look forward to seeing how that goes.
Yeah. And something that I don't publicly put out there is my biggest fear I have is of water. So ever since I was a child, I've been afraid of water. Like, you won't catch me swimming, or when we go on holiday, I'm not in the pool. Like, I am massively scared of water. When I have to do like a small water crossing on fell runs, it's quite a challenge for me, mentally and physically. So yeah, I know when my tired times come and I start glancing down, it's going to be a big challenge for me to try to complete this run.
That's what makes me laugh, is that, you know, you think to yourself, I don't like heights, I don't like water. What shall I do? I'll run over a bridge over and over again. And I won't even get a medal unless I run 200 miles. Brilliant. Yeah, I think you just don't like medals very much, Vic. That's what it is. Listen, I couldn't chat to you without also talking about one of your other strings to your bow, which is your business side of things, which is We Run Bright, because you create clothing for runners, don't you, as well? Can you tell me a little bit about how that all came to being?
Yeah, so just over like a year and a half ago, I was whinging to my best friend Gavin that I have the best skirts and leggings, but could I find awesome tops to match them? No. And he said to me, well, imagine being a guy. It's even harder to find anything with colour or design on. And I was like, ugh. And he was like, maybe we could make our own tops. And I was just like, can we do that? And he was like, yeah. And we kind of did. And it really took off well. So yeah, we're into our second year now, and we basically make bright, colourful, mood-boosting active tops that we believe no matter what shape or size or pace or distance you go, you should have the choice to be able to wear bright, colourful tops. So yeah, that is what we do. We make them and bring a little bit of colour to the world.
You do indeed. And you didn't just think, oh, we'll try and do that. I mean, you're really doing that really very well, aren't you now? So as you say, in your second year, doing super well. Also, one of the questions I have, because we are both mums, we're both very busy. You now have, you run your own business, you work alongside that. How the heck do you fit in all the training that you do? Do you have a secret recipe that we all need to follow for this?
My dad used to say, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. And it is so true, because I just schedule really well. I am very good at scheduling stuff and being able to manage stuff. The weeks that I'm the most unproductive is when I don't have a lot to do and I don't even know what to do with myself, so nothing extra gets done. I'm just that type of person that loves being busy and loves doing stuff. I think I need to be busy. That's just my personality. So yeah, I somehow managed to fit it all in and have time for a hot bath and a glass of wine too.
I think you'd make a good journalist, because part of my my work life was always that I'd need to be on deadline to really get anything done. I love that pressure of having absolutely everything on top of me all at once, in terms of work and life and juggling. And I think you're right. Ask a busy person. You're obviously really, really good at organising yourself and making sure you fit those long runs in, which is just incredible. And I suppose as well, as a mum, that's what you have to do. You have to find those little moments in the day, be it very early in the morning, very late at night, when you don't have that mum responsibility, when you can kind of sneak out and go for your run or do your training. Is that how it works for you a lot of the time?
Yeah, very much so. And like early mornings, late nights. I do all of that. And I think my training and my running is my escape and sort of like my outlet for the busy lifestyle. So it works perfectly for me.
Brilliant. Well, you seem to have got the perfect recipe, because every time I look at you on social media, you've just smashed, another challenge, broken another record, or, done something else amazing, which is absolutely fantastic. Where can people find out a little bit more about you, Vic? You're online, aren't you? So where should people go and find out about your next adventures?
I am on Instagram as the Happy Runner NW, as in for North Wales, which is where I'm from, and the same with Facebook and the Happy Runner. So yeah, you can always find me popping up on there with a big smile on the top of a mountain, usually. With
a big smile on top of a mountain, and most likely with no shoes on.
Correct.
Vic, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and really mega good luck on your bridge challenge. Obviously, we know that the bridge is going to hold firm, so you'll have no problems doing that. And thank you ever so much for talking to me. As I say, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to leave a review for the Vegan Fitness Runner podcast. Please subscribe if you don't want to miss an episode, and remember you can find out more about all my guests and further information on all the topics covered over on the website veganfitnessrunner.com. Thanks again, and bye for now.